Welcome to the Actors Podcast. I'm Douglas Taurel, and I have a deep passion for the craft of acting and everything that involves the business of acting. I'm an actor, producer, and a writer, and I've been in the trenches just like you. And like you, I have the audition and producing scars to prove it. Here on this podcast, we try to help actors take control of their careers, one episode at a time. Today, I'm talking with two amazing creatives, Darrel and her husband, Marc Brener. Both are actors, producers, and writers. And we're talking about the future of Broadway, the impact of AI in the theater and entertainment industry, and why creating your own content is always the ultimate key to success in our very evolving industry. Laura and Marc have produced an amazing animated TV series, written plays, and they truly understand what it takes to create opportunities for themselves instead of waiting for them. All right, let's dive in. I just looked up your animated project, and that's the first thing I want to talk about. How did you guys do the animation? That's really cool.
Yeah, we found someone on Upwork and we just posted something on there and said, this is our budget. And a bunch of people reached out to us and we reached out to some people and ultimately we found the right person. We started with one person and then we had two animators. We are at one again and we just crank out about a new episode every week.
Yeah, and he's become a good friend. He's a very equal participant and collaborator in the process. He's giving us ideas, and so it's been really fun for that relationship to grow as our show keeps growing.
I have two questions. One, how complex was it to create the animation?
We relied heavily on our animators, but Dan's been an animator. He's been animating for 20 years or something like that, but it is a one-man job at this point. So I think it's quite a lot, but he cranks out about a minute a week. So yeah, no, there's a lot that goes into it. Marc wrote the script, I did a lot of editing, and we bounce off ideas, and then we send him like a storyboard, but more in written format, like our ideas of different shots, close-ups, wides, what we want to happen in each scene, and then he takes those instructions and he has a lot of creative license, and then he comes back and we'll give him some notes. Can we cut that a little bit quicker, or can we remove some space from there, or have it pan around to a different angle or something like that?
What did you guys get different? I'm sure when you looked around for an animator, you saw different styles, different budgets. How did you guys, because I wrote a children's book and I remember looking for an illustrator, and it's from A to Z. You can go in so many different directions, from stick figures to advanced cartoon looking. And so how did you guys settle on this animation? And was this kind of what you envisioned, or you found a happy medium between your budget and what you can find and what you liked?
I've been a big fan of Family Guy and Simpsons a long time, and I think we posted that we'd like to be close to that sort of style. And the first animator, he was good. It just, after about a year, there was just some reasons we just moved on. But the guy we're working with now, Daniel, he actually reached out to us.
Guys,
I think he found us on Upwork, but he reached out through our YouTube channel and he said, I really like your work. If you need some additional help, I'd love to help out. And then we really connected with him, and we just didn't have it in the budget to have two animators on board. We just no way we could afford it. And we unfortunately had to part ways with the other guy amicably, but it just never fun to do.
It's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is, and we've been cruising nicely with Daniel.
Daniel, timing was an issue because we were animating.
We've been as many as 10. Now we're trying to get ahead about 5 episodes before we start the new season. And what the original guy could do in about 3 weeks, Daniel can do in a week to 10 days. So it was just a simple.
He was fast.
We just needed to be able to stay ahead of things so that there wasn't huge lag times in terms of getting out material.
No.
Finding a rhythm. And when did you guys start it, and when did you guys produce it?
We wrote it. The idea first came in like almost 2 years ago now. And we wrote season 1, which is about 28 30-second to 45-second episodes. We found the animator in, I think, the spring of 2023, and it was looking good, and we were starting to do good, and we were happy with it. And then it was like, so I wrote 5 more seasons in the summer and the fall, and then we premiered in November of 2023, our first episode.
Premiere on YouTube?
YouTube primarily. We've been doing it also on TikTok and X and a little bit on Instagram and Facebook. But our two primary targets right now are X and YouTube.
We've only been churning out public for a little over a year, and we've have a fun little following growing. I think YouTube's
Yeah.
it's close to 8.
Close to 8 on YouTube and close to 9,000 followers on X. And we've got a few super fans on each, and we're just building it out.
Having fun.
It's a 5 to 10 year plan.
TikTok, we got in trouble.
Why'd you get in trouble on TikTok? Do you have
there's a I think episode 15 or 16, there's a COVID China mask joke. And
Give us a little bit of a start, and before we let the machine take over.
And we got a great following on TikTok until that episode, and they let us still use the app. We are banned for 10 years for using the promote feature because we made a joke about China and masks and COVID.
That's crazy, man.
10 years.
10 years. They didn't even put you in the penalty box. They basically nuked you.
We appealed, we did it all. They nuked us.
One of the questions I always ask about when I have independent artists and producers is raising money. So did you guys fund it yourself? How'd you guys raise your money? Did you do a fundraiser or anything?
Yeah, I think we got some startup money to friends and family and random people here and there. We raised a little bit of money. And then right now I'm just putting in a little money right now as we keep going, and then we'll see what happens come seasons 3 and 4.
Fundraiser?
Just reaching out to friends and family, nothing like a Kickstarter this time around. I've done that in the past. It's a lot of work, and they say you only get one chance with family and friends with a Kickstarter.
You do.
So this time I just reached out to people, and I was like, hey, can you give $100, $200 here? And we raised a nice chunk to get us started. And now I had this full-time job for about 4 years, and I save everything. So I just been using that money to generally just go to this, and eventually we're starting to make a little bit of money on X and a little bit of money on YouTube, and that'll all just get funneled back to the project.
Yeah, Kickstarters is the last artist I had on. She did a Kickstarter, and when I produced Landing Home, I have a pretty large veteran community and military families who follow me, and I just didn't have the energy to do a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or all the other ones that are now out there. I was just like, man, it's like a whole nother production. It really is. Yeah. And so let's say you're trying to raise 20,000 or 30,000, you almost are going to put 5 or 10,000 of your own money to raise that kind of money. I was like, I'll just go beg and ask for money and use my own money. But if that's the only way for you to produce it, you have to do it. I think what a lot of people make the mistake is they think that you can just open up a link, kickstart, and money's going to come not pouring in, but you're going to be able to raise money. It's nonstop. And I love seeing, I'm a big believer in supporting people who produce projects, and I'm on all these their newsletters and stuff. And I try to give when I can and how much I can. And I can always tell who's going to make it and who's not going to make it, because the one who's bugging the fuck out of me in my inbox is going to make it. And the one who, hey, and then 6 months later or 3 months later, you get an email, you're like, this person's not going to make they're not going to make their goal, their funding goal. So I think for people out there to understand that you have to be organized, and it's a lot of fucking work.
Persistence, definitely. There are people whose jobs are to consult on Kickstarters. They market themselves as like Kickstarter goddesses.
Yeah, and they're not free.
And they're not free.
They're not free. They're not free. You pay us to help you raise money while you put in your own money.
It's about an ordinary Joe who one day wakes up with the power to do anything he wants.
Repercussions of that.
And the repercussions of that.
In your relationship and in the world.
And so he can literally do whatever he wants. And he's dating a woman for the last few years, and he realizes he chooses power and anything he wants over her. And then he's got to decide if he wants her back and if he can get her back, and then what to do with this power in the end.
Oh, that's short?
Yeah, but they all together tell one long story with a cliffhanger after each.
So how many episodes are in the season?
About 28 in the season, and there's going to be about 180 when it's all said and done.
So it'll be a full feature film by the time it's done, or right now we have 2 episodes of around a half hour.
Each season is about 22 to 25 minutes long.
That's really smart. I like that 1 minute thing. Did you guys settle on that from the very beginning?
We were thinking just attention spans being so short, and also feeling like we wanted to release something. We didn't want to we didn't want to wait for a couple years in order to get like one thing out. We wanted to feel like we could start producing and start building a community right away. So the easiest way to do that was to create these short scenes that can be put together, but allow us to be productive and generate content faster. But I think on a writing level, it also made sure that each scene is really thought out in terms of what
That's hard because you have to have a beginning, middle, end, and what, 45 seconds?
30 seconds to a minute and change. And you're right. You have to have the beginning, middle, and end, and you have to have the joke. And it also a lot of times has to connect to the next episode, because that was how we wanted to be different. Instead of being sitcom, we wanted to be serialized, so that if you start at the beginning and stick with us throughout the whole thing, there are rewards throughout from a storytelling perspective.
So let me just watch one.
We've gotten better as we've gone along.
Do anything to get Margot back. I will do anything. But first, what? I didn't want to be. You do me. Why? This is my show. He's Brener.
I think he's watching the beginning to season 2.
Season 2 premiere.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yes,
Definitely.
definitely adult animation. Family Guy.
Great. That opens up so many freaking doors for you guys, because once you're done, eventually you basically have your film, and then you can decide if you want to. I had Landing Home, and I went to, where was it at? What was it called? I can't think of it right now, but it was a film festival out in LA. It was actually one of the better smaller film festivals I've been. They had producers out there, and they had a really good, it was really well organized. Anyhow, they had an animation series section, and it was great. And why am I bringing that up? Oh, because their episodes were 5 minutes in length, and they were pitching. They showed, I think it was 30 minutes. They showed 6 episodes, and they were pitching it as a series. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because even if the series doesn't get picked up, you can create a fan base. You don't need really a streaming network to hold you. And eventually, if it gets really popular, they can pick you up. But it opens so many doors for you from a production side, where you can build an audience off the platform from what you're creating.
There's 2 ways we're looking to go with this. By the time the 180 episodes are done, they're all written. By the time they air, it'll probably be the middle of 2027.
If we stay at our current
If
pace.
we current pace, we're releasing about 1 a week.
If we can pick up some budgetary advancement, we can hire another animator and probably move faster.
So if someone like Netflix comes along, the end of this series is set up to launch what they were going to do next. And those could be 22-minute episodes very easily, or it can be, we can just continue and write season 7 through 12, keep doing it ourselves, and just stick with our 30-second to minute-long episodes.
And in creating content, it's always so much easier to find partners, and it's always easier to sell the product than it is to sell an idea. And so as you start networking and your production starts growing, when you make your pitch, you say, let me show you what I have, compared to, I have this idea, this animated idea. People may say, I like this idea, and let me connect you to this person, and let me connect you to this, or I like to be part of that. So always having content and always taking the initiative to produce your own shit first, I think is bravo, and it's always applauded.
Well, will also make it attractive to any other potential investors who see we already have a community that's interested in what we're putting out there.
No one wants to read scripts anymore.
What's that?
No one wants to read scripts anymore.
Yeah, or study acting. No, I was just on a veteran podcast up in Montana, and that's exactly what he was asking me about the acting business, and I said, I don't know. It's a very different. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but when I studied acting with Win Handman in New York in Carnegie Hall, the world is so different now. It's people don't. I don't even know. Are they reading Tennessee Williams? Are they reading plays? Are they studying acting? Are they reading? Are they even reading? And it's
They're
true
reading.
because no one's reading a script. No one is, you guys, I think me and Mark are around the same age, but it seems no one reads. I mean, and I don't even know what younger actors, what material they're working on now, because even material now has become so taboo. If you read depending what Tennessee Williams play you read, he's considered taboo. Or you can't even read John Steinbeck or Lansford Wilson. So I don't even know what the fuck they're studying in class anymore. Where do you guys think the industry is right now, and where do you think it's going?
If we knew, we would be millionaires. No, we talk about it all the time. The business is not the business. Even I've been out of school now, I'll say at least a decade. I'll put it there.
Where'd
You
you go
know,
to school?
I split actually my undergrad between NYU Tisch School of the Arts and USC in Los
Oh, wow.
Angeles. I had a friend out in LA who invited me out to LA like I can't remember. I was in my some point during my sophomore year at NYU, and I was so romanced by the whole glitz and glamour of LA. She lived in Beverly Hills, and
Nice.
yeah, I was a small town girl from Maine, and so LA swept me out there. But I've always been an East Coast girl at heart, and so I ended up back East Coast. But the business has changed so much since I graduated, like in terms of how content gets out there. And now we're hearing all about this great contraction and this bottlenecking. You have movie stars who are performing on Broadway and movie stars taking TV roles that they never would have
They're
taken.
taking every role. It's like the Golden Globes. I didn't watch all of it. I just watched what it was on X. But the comedian who came out, she goes, "Oh, it's amazing. I've got all these. I'm in the same room with all these movie stars," and then she names all the names. And I'm in the same room with all these TV stars, and she names the exact same people, meaning that all the movie stars are doing TV and they're TV stars.
Yeah.
And it's like a dig, but it's so true because what the fuck is George Clooney doing on Broadway? Seriously, I know it's great and people want to see, and it'll sell tickets, but yeah,
but he should be working on something else unless he has a deep
He should
passion.
be doing Ocean's 14.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he can't do Broadway, but so many stars have done. Yeah, it's survival of the fucking fittest, man, and they don't care, and no one cares, and they're like they're gonna grab whatever work they want to grab, and that gets pushed down. I guess maybe we're all the same, but that type of consideration gets pushed down, and then we all get pushed down or pushed out.
There's a bottlenecking that's definitely happening. I was just talking with a friend of mine who is a series regular on a very successful CBS show, and she hasn't been able to get a lot of work since she stopped because Uma Thurman is taking TV roles, something that she would have been appropriate for. She can't get in the room for, even though she has this major series regular credit. And she also was telling me that a while ago, the unions got rid of residuals for series regulars. So she's not even getting residuals.
Is that legal?
I guess they negotiated it into the contract that if you're guest star, if you're recurring, they all get residuals. But if you're series regular,
No, that can't be right.
She's not getting any residuals for her 6-season CBS show.
It's got to be something in that specific contract because there's no way that the union, whatever you want to call it, we're all part of it, but I'm not a big fan of it. There's no way they would have signed that because every actor would have.
I was shocked. Yeah, no, I gotta research that more thoroughly, but that's what she said. So maybe she's confused, but she is
I
the
think
most.
she's because there's no way that would be in the contract that they would take away those residuals.
Maybe they bumped up the salary rates and figured that covered it.
Maybe. I don't see it.
If you're making Friends and getting paid $1 million an episode or something like.
Yeah, but those comparisons are not even good anymore because in those days they had the eyeballs. You know what I'm saying? You were going to the TV to watch Friends. Now you've got your phone. You've got so many. They don't have the eyeballs anymore.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't know how it changes. I used to go back and forth with people I knew in LA about AI. I'm a big technology guy. I've always been because I've always shared with people as an actor. I'm always trying to find the back door. So I'm always using as many opportunities as I can. And I was one of the first people who, had a website early on in my career where no one had a website. And I was using as much technology as I possibly could. I remember using Amazing Mail early on, trying to send postcards through this one service. And I just always believed in technology. And then I learned marketing because I felt I need to get my stuff out there. And so I can't afford anybody else. So I'm going to figure out how to do Facebook and Google marketing so I can teach myself. And so when everyone was freaking out about AI, as a student of history of acting, when the silence went to talkies and talkies became color and color, everyone gets every of the generation that is going into the next generation. There's a part of the old generation that gets left behind in the entertainment. It always has. Stars that were famous silent actors, the moment we heard their voice, we were like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to hear that person. And that happened in the vaudevillian days. And technology is undefeated. And you either have to adapt to it or you get left behind. And that's my opinion with our industry. I think we're going to, as performers, artists, producers, we're going to have to adapt to AI. And that means using it to create projects, using it to find opportunities, because everybody else is doing it. And like you were saying, no one reads, no one's really writing anymore. They're finding all these Hollywood scripts, current scripts that are in TV shows that are AIs all over them. And there's a pending lawsuit, I believe, by some of the Writers Guild, because they're finding out that their work is being pulled from AI. I don't know how you fight it, but they're like saying AI is using our shit and writing something else with it, and we should get a residual from that. And so I don't know how that's going to work out.
Wow.
So the speed of things are moving so fast that I don't know how we move forward without AI as an artist. I really don't, because then if you think about the industry and people are like, okay, we want to ban AI. We want no one to use it. Okay, who's going to abide by that rule?
No.
In our world? No one. No one. Even Hollywood.
Or, don't care. Like, there are people who just care about making money.
Yeah. And so you're going to have to adapt with it, or you're going to be sitting there with a pencil and a piece of paper.
You still hope for artists, though, because they say garbage in, garbage out. Is only as good as it's only as good a tool as you decide it is.
I think the future with that is I think where the craft is going to come in now is the prompting engineering, right? You can ask ChatGPT for a question, but the creativeness, how creative can you ask the question, right? Mm-hmm. That's where I think everyone's going to be able to use AI. There's going to be a separation, people who know how to use it really well and people who just know how to use it, right? And how to apply hook point theories and Aristotle's storytelling theories within a question or within a story structure using AI, instead of saying, hey, write me this. Hey, can you write this and give me a hook, a conflict, an interest, and a resolution? And can you base it on the hero's journey? And write in the style of Steven Spielberg or David Mamet. And then that's that engineering that I think we're going to as artists. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like the whole thing where I remember, this is why when people say they're studying acting, I'm like, what are you studying? The theater industry's changed so much in itself, and it's gone upside down. And how bad were you guys affected during COVID? I know as artists, nothing was going on, but how did it affect you, like emotionally or personally?
At that point, I took a break from the business and I had a full-time job and I was working from home full-time and I was just writing a musical at that time. So I was just doing a ton of writing during that time.
For me, it was pretty major. I was involved with a show on Broadway we had an out-of-town tryout scheduled at the Goodman in Chicago. And then the pandemic happened, and so it got postponed, and then it got postponed again. And then there was a creative team, a complete director change, and then new director, new vision. And there were a couple people who stayed on, but most people were replaced. And I unfortunately fell into that category. So my Broadway debut was in reach, and then it evaporated.
I heard a lot of stories like your story specifically of actors who just got cast in Broadway shows and they never got to do their show because of COVID. And then the show ended and closed and they lost their roles. And I remember reading about that or hearing about it, where there was tons of actors who were like just over the moon. They just got cast in Broadway and then it never happened because of COVID.
Yep, I know I was one of many, so I don't waste too much time wallowing in self-pity, but it was hard when, you've worked for a long time and then you see it and you see the out-of-town tryout and you know that Broadway and all the producers, and then shit happens.
How has it changed you going forward now as an artist?
We're just trying to make stuff. If I write a TV pilot right now, my agent's going to be like, I can't do anything with this. unless I come to him with the big TV director attached and a couple stars attached
Yeah.
or a showrunner, he's not going to lift a finger at this point. So we got the animated series.
Smart.
We're trying to make just a teeny tiny indie film that we can shoot in Maine, where we live part of the
So
year.
horror Valentine's Day kind of thing.
And
Get Out related.
And so we're just trying to make stuff like, look, she's auditioning. I'm still trying to get this musical off the ground. But the mantra has been, let's try and come up with things that we can make on our own.
Yeah,
That's
and it's a
that's
lot more
yeah.
fun when you have the animated series. We really feel like we have a lot of control over that. The musical, and I wrote a play. It's still challenging because you're having to rely on a lot of different people and pieces, puzzle pieces to come
Yeah.
together in order to produce this really expensive thing.
That's really, I also believe that's also a big part of the future. I performed in DC just recently. I have two solo shows, and one I haven't done in a while. It's based on World War One, and I was asked to do it to honor Sabin Howard. He did this beautiful bronze structure in DC. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's amazing. It's the biggest bronze structure in the Western Hemisphere. It's basically the soldier's journey from going into World War One and coming home, and it tells a story. It's beautiful, and the models that he used, actual veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, and so there's so many layers into the structure. I hired a photographer to shoot me, and she has two young kids, and they want to study acting. God bless them. The biggest advice I can give is what I always give when I perform in colleges and young actors ask me, because it's so fucking hard. And look, acting has always been hard. It's always been hard. I think it's even harder now, but I think it's also even easier now in many ways, because you can do like an animated series, and if it takes off, you're off. Where when I was in the business, you had to knock on doors and pray that someone would give you an audition or call you in. That's not true anymore. So on that sake, you have a lot of opportunities, but produce your own shit. That's what I would always say. I still believe if I can go turn the clock around, I would have wrote my play 10 years earlier and found other avenues to perform it. Because really, I think the future, because that bottleneck, you're going to have to open your own doors, and you're going to have to create your own projects and share your own creative vision, and I guess be more disciplined, not being focused, which is hard on the money part of it, because the money part sucks, but just focusing on creating stuff and putting your work out there.
Building communities. I was so excited to meet Jeff and our relationship. We've grown closer to Jeff, and then getting introduced to you, especially when you understand that these people get it and are looking to produce their own things and can pull their weight and are open-minded and are not so agenda focused that the story suffers. That's really exciting to feel like there's still a community of people that wants that.
And I think that's also important too, because the whole Zoom world now that is integrated into our lives now. I think when we were studying, it was so much easier to have a community, because you went to class with people, and then you went to have drinks afterwards, and you were talking about auditions, and you were rehearsing together, and so it was easy. You didn't even. When I look back, sometimes nostalgically and fondly of the process of going to class and having drinks at Rudy's afterwards and eating. That was easy to build a community. Now you actually have to meet people and talk about projects. And this one of the reasons why I created this podcast. And slowly I've been doing more. I've been finding a voice in my podcast, and I love talking about producing, because I think that's a lot of things people are interested in, but that's creating a community of people who are like-minded in production and producing, who have initiative. Because we both know in this business, there's a lot of people who have a great talk, but they don't have any initiative, and they'll drive you mad. And some of them are talented too. I know a couple of them, and I'm like, I produced one show with a friend, but it's hard to go on another chapter with that person.
Yeah, I did a project with a really close friend of mine, very talented, and thought it was going to be this brilliant thing during the pandemic, but we just had different ideas of work ethic and accountability and life. It was a crazy time in everyone's defense. You find out who you can get in bed with and who just becomes more of a drain than an equal collaborator.
You guys think live theater Broadway will always be Broadway to a degree, right? But until the city kind of finds its group, the city needs to fix itself as well, because what people in our industry don't understand is the people who you need to sell Broadway to and make feel safe are people who are coming from Kansas, Florida, Texas. And our industry tends to forget that, right? They think they're writing theater for only people who live, or New York specifically, those are not the Broadway buyers in general. And that's why I think Broadway is really struggling to get back where it's at. So the city has to fix itself, but off Broadway's been decimated since COVID. And I know off Broadway is struggling. And money is so expensive now, and theaters are going under, and regional theaters are going under. When I started, there were so many fucking regional theaters in the country, great little regional companies that when you went into a casting director office and you had Arkansas rep or San Diego rep, they're like, ooh, where have you been? And they're gone. They're under. They don't exist anymore. Yeah. And so I just wonder, is live theater going to keep going? And then if you look at like my son's audience, are they interested in live theater? I don't think they are. And can you make someone sit and listen to 2.5 hour play anymore? I just don't know. I'm just trying to be pragmatic about it and talk with other artists and figure out, like, where do we think it's going?
I could talk about this a lot too, but do you have any thoughts?
I think that you only need a smaller percentage. Yes, the kids are always going to go YouTube and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But
I'm not even talking about kids though. All right, 30-year-olds.
Everything's cyclical. Everything is cyclical. So when I worked at a talent agency for a while, and back in the day, it was like all the writers are leaving movies to go make TV series.
That's true.
And then if you remember back then, 20 years ago, it was the people on the right saying, oh, the Janet Jackson Nipplegate thing, we got to cancel everything. And Family Guy, they were the cancel culture back then. And so everything has a way that it finally works its way around. Hollywood loves to follow and chase and not do anything original. I love Ricky Gervais joke at the Golden Globes. If ISIS started a production company, you would have your agents call them immediately. And it's true. That's who these people are. But everything goes on a cycle. So I worked for a major TV showrunner for 5 years. At the time, it was like, okay, multi-camera is out. Multi-camera is dead. It's only single camera. And then the next hot thing was the Modern Family docu-style. And there were 800 shows about docu-style. So I think it's all going to come back eventually. It just takes time. It takes that one spark. We always talk about how it's like belting is hot right now on Broadway versus the classic soprano. But eventually there's going to be that one show that comes around, and it's going to be so many beautiful sopranos. And next thing, everything is going to turn. Eventually it's going to turn.
Sucks. That 20-year cycle.
No. It's turning faster now. So like
you were going so good with optimism. In 30 years, we'll be there.
That's the hard thing, is that we know we have confidence it'll change. It's just like in what time frame. That's where we get that's where we can get.
Marc had me, man.
In
20 years. When you're 75, you'll be ready to go again.
No, things move faster now. So things move fast. We're already through that 20-year cycle. So I think somewhere in that next, 4 to 8 years, I think we're going to start seeing that change. And and also things move faster now. So I really do believe that it can't hold on much longer. They're going to try, but it can't hold on much longer.
But I do think theaters, going back to like theaters specifically, I do think they have to get a little bit smarter. I've done some small regional theater, a bunch of regional theater work, and I would do these shows and the attendance was not, like, sometimes it was good, but a lot of times it was not great. And I wasn't seeing the marketing really blasting.
It's also really surprising too. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm performing at the American Revolution Museum and had this exact same conversation. I think a lot of theaters just don't know how to market. Yeah. I don't think they've been trained. Now, the other thing is their budget is just drying up. They are really struggling with budget wise. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I know exactly what you're talking about. You're like, maybe putting up a poster of the show somewhere would have been a good idea.
Talking to businesses, going to hotels and making sure the concierge is briefed, giving out some discounted tickets. At a certain point, I know you hate to paper it, but a one night of papering so that the word spreads a little bit. But then I also think you do have to take a look at your content, because I think there's a lot of theaters that
they're in echo chambers.
They're currently in echo chambers, and
that's a big deal.
They claim that they want to reach a diverse audience, but they don't.
They don't. And that's and that's across the country. And I see that in New York. I see that specifically in Off-Broadway. I was just reading, I think Macbeth, I don't know, is Macbeth still playing right now? No, it just closed.
I think so.
With Daniel Craig? No,
yeah.
that closed.
Closed, I think. And
they had I'm all for minority casting, but it's fucking Macbeth. And at some point, suspension of disbelief kind of runs out there. Like, why is Macduff in a wheelchair? And they're trying to hammer you with a point. You can't even listen to the Shakespeare anymore, because you're like, oh, you have a clear agenda and you're hammering me on it. And I don't even know what you're saying with me anymore. And that's all over the play. That's all over the country. And I think that some of the mistakes regional theaters have made, and a lot of people are noticing, but they don't know how to get out of it, because especially in New York and even in some parts of some well-known regional theaters, San Diego Rep is a great example. They went really hard left, San Diego Rep. And I knew San Diego Rep, and I was always trying to get there. And I knew people, but when I would watch their content, they were producing like, who the fuck is watching that? And okay. And then COVID was a catalyst. COVID lit a fire with the whole 2020 and the riots that we were going through. And so everyone was on this diversity push really hard. And I remember thinking, this is not a winning formula. And they're gone, but the theaters are surviving. They've pitched their tent with a far left audience. So now they can't really make that turn off of them, because they're the only ones who are coming to the theater. So then how do you make that turn towards the center or center left, or just the center? And I saw a play about when the whole the Dobbs decision came out, and it was all about abortion. And I understood they had an agenda, and it was very one-sided. But I thought, from a creative point of view, you have to tell the other side of the story, or just entertain the other side of the story. It is so one-sided that anybody who's studied history knows that it's farcical almost. You know what I'm saying? It was almost farcical, and you're not telling an honest story here. From a business sense, how big is that audience? It's not a very big audience, and they're not very big, and they close down, and they struggle with getting people in there, and they're struggling to selling tickets, and nobody from Kansas or Texas wants to come in and see a play like that. They just don't want to see it.
It's hard when you lose trust to build it back. It's like a relationship that you have to build again, because
we've gone off the tracks when we can't do Tennessee Williams.
You're a big fan.
How could you not be? But it's beautiful. I'm not saying that he's not my only favorite. You can't do Sam Shepard. I have a friend, his name is Billy, and he was Win Handman's assistant, and he's getting his MFA now down in Florida. And we were just texting, and he was just telling me, you can't upset transgender community, you can't upset the gay community, and like everyone is walking on eggshells. And every time they do a play, like it has to go through this whole filtration process. Can we do this play? I don't ever remember that ever going on when we were studying acting. You just picked a play and you either disagreed with it or you didn't agree with it.
Yeah. Which is why we think that comedy is just going to be a really important factor in bridging that gap and finding a way for everybody to just bring down the temperature a little, just get everybody to laugh at themselves. Nobody's trying to insult. Like, if we're trying to insult you, we're also insulting ourselves, because we're all humans and we're all absurd and we're all just trying to figure it out. So I think comedy has a big role to play in getting people to laugh at themselves.
Tell me about your Jewish musical that you're writing. It is, okay.
It's best described as a Jewish Book of Mormon. So we're pushing the envelope, and it's about an Upper West Side playwright who is struggling to get his play off the ground. and a mysterious stranger from the Islamic Republic of Shiram shows up and offers to produce his play and tricks him to come to the Middle East, where he has a different
develop his play. And so it's this unlikely brotherhood that forms from two people from very different backgrounds who have historically, their cultures have been quite at odds with each other. But through developing a Broadway musical, they come together.
Are you writing it, Mark?
I wrote the initial book and lyrics, and then Laura and I were introduced
Some of the music.
in some of the first pass of the music.
Very basic.
When we worked with the orchestrators and Laura, of the 22 or 23 songs, there was one they were like, "Oh, this is good."
It's a process.
It's a process. So Laura and I got introduced as friends and colleagues, and she read it and really responded to it, and she gave some notes, and we did a reading. And then we got connected with a composer in Maine, and she added all those sevenths and minor ninths and all those beautiful things to make it beautiful. And we changed a lot of lyrics and a lot of dialogue. And then we worked with a composer here in New York to give it a more Broadway sound, because the composer in Maine came from more of like a Latin jazz background. And we just made some changes to give it that more Broadway pop. We've done a couple readings since, and now our next step is to do a 29-hour reading to hopefully find investors.
A 29-hour?
29 hour.
That's the union. Basically, we just need a reading, some kind
of union contract thing. She's 29 hours. That's a long reading.
We just need time to rehearse it and actually get to see what it is, because all of our other readings,
which doesn't make sense. That's another stipulation by our union that just, anyway, I need to get off my soapbox.
The musical, the overall goal, similar to the animated series, is making jokes that for 10 years you haven't been allowed to make. And not that we're looking to go over the top and piss people off, but I mean, there's songs called "Everyone in the FBI is Gay," and
I want to blow you up.
A gay Jewish FBI agent falls in love with a Muslim weapons manufacturer, and they sing together.
It's so absurd.
Stuff like that.
It's so absurd that it's unified.
Smart, man. Smart. That's smart.
At the end of the day, all the Jews and all the Muslims are getting along, and there's interfaith marriages and relationships, and it's just having fun. It's a 2-hour piece where you just go to the theater and you laugh and you hear some good songs.
Yeah, that was like Book of Mormons. That's what I think in my email that I sent, no one cared. Like, no one cared about who you voted for, what your political, what your sexual orientation was. No one cared anyhow. But anyhow, that's just really smart that you guys are doing that. I think that's awesome. And I used to love Book of Mormons, but they even fucked with that. You're like, what?
Yeah, I heard they made the change.
Yeah, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
The guy had to get it in there.
You got to get it in there. So if I were going to say, what's y'all's dream project? Is it a musical? Is it the animation? Or is it just a mixture? If you had to pick a dream project, what would you pick to work on?
I think one project would be too hard for me to settle on.
You have a lot of experience, audiobooks.
My dream is to have a successful production company with my husband and other teammates where we're churning out whatever the great idea is, whether it's an animated series that can just go on forever like Family Guy, or it's a Jewish Book of Mormon new musical to get Broadway to like calm down and have a little fun.
Right now, I've got a couple screenplays, I've got a novel, we've got the animated series. If I had to pick one, it's the musical. Yeah, that's the one that I think is just
the Jewish one.
Funny, yeah, the Jewish one is it's the funniest. Laura also has a play. We're going to Long Island for a reading in March. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What's it about?
End of life care, a family of women that come together when the matriarch's, her body starts a negative feedback loop and enters hospice, and the breakdowns in communication that go on in terms of how to treat this last stage, inspired by a family, my grandmother's passing, but also taking into account other people's stories, because it's not that murder is a glamorous death. It's not like this crazy death, but it's what we all can relate to, I think, to some extent, dealing with aging parents and who are fortunate enough to get to an old age, and then the body just starts to break down, and then it's what's the quality of life? And it deals with some questions about medically assisted death. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I can't go to the reading, otherwise I'm going to be
he's
in trouble.
biased.
I'm going to fall.
No, it's beautiful. I'm dealing with an aging mother, and I just got off a phone with a friend of mine who's dealing with an aging mother, and I've got another friend who's got an aging father, and yeah, it's not getting old. That's not for the weak.
Yeah.
No, it's not for the faint of heart. It's cruel sometimes how nature goes about, but that's beautiful. That's really
And
cool. How,
with
how
the
many acts?
baby, it's one act actually. It's like a 90-minute
Characters?
5.
Five. Smart, not too big, not too small,
Yep.
not too big.
And with the baby boomers, like with the silver tsunami that's coming, I think it's going to be even more a subject. I just believe it's a story that I've seen through readings, like I just want people to feel less alone and feel like they're a part of a community of other people who are willing to talk about it and not shove it under the rug.
If you feel comfortable, I'll look around my network and some theaters that I know and see if anybody will be interested in looking at it and performing it. That's the stuff I love. For me, it's always theater. I feel very blessed that I get to do my play and I get to walk on stage and the footlights, and I still get my rocks off. That sounded wrong, probably. I still get. Hold on, that's my dog being called.
Doggy.
Doggy, downward dog.
Come on, come on, boy. Yeah, so it's great to be able to do theater. I know you guys got to wrap up anyways.
I've read your play, by the way. Jeff, I think, gave it to me at one point during Tequila Talking, and I loved it.
Yeah, I think New York rep is going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
We will
good.
be there.
We will be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
So-
I'm a sucker for dramatic, emotional plays. I love seeing pain on stage. I love suffer. I studied with Alec Baldwin many years ago. I got to study with him for 3 summers. I got to study with him. Believe it or not, he taught an advanced acting workshop in the Hamptons. One day I'll have to tell the whole story about getting into that class. This is right before his career was big, and then it was down, and he hadn't really taken off on 30 Rock. He was actually trying to get out of his 30 Rock contract. He didn't want to do it. And NBC said, "You're not getting out, or we're going to sue you." Lucky for him, they forced him into it, and he became a star again. But when he was teaching that class, he wasn't doing much. And he's actually an amazing director. He is so smart, so astute with theater, and understands acting. But he would always have this phrase, when in doubt, suffer more. People come to the theater to see you suffer. And it's still an acting note that I hold on to when I'm doing a character of my play or something. Like I'm getting a little bit lost, and I just, okay, suffer, Doug, just suffer. Because it's a thin line between playing vulnerable, being a victim, and suffering.
If it's well done, because life can be very hard, and to see somebody on stage just being so vulnerable and honest, it does make you feel like, oh, I'm not alone. That's cathartic.
Were you close with your grandmother?
Very close.
Oh yeah, she was always in your house, or I didn't know my grandparents.
I'm very lucky. Yeah, my parents didn't get to know theirs very well. She only lived about an hour and a half away, so I did see her a lot. And from a very early age, everyone was like, "You got your voice from your grandmother. You got your voice from your grandmother." And so she and I always had this special bond of music as our love language. And she always just told me, "I'm so proud of you." I think because I got to follow my dreams. She was part of that generation where acting was not admirable and very admirable profession, maybe, or at least it was not a profession that many parents wanted their daughters going into. And so she did the more traditional thing and had the family, and she just loved watching what I got to do. And
do you think of her every time you sing?
Every time but
a lot.
Frequently.
What was her name?
Harla.
Harla?
Jane.
May she rest in peace.
I do. Thank you very much. Paying homage to the people who came before us. But I know you have much to do, and thank you for having us on. It was just so nice to chat with you and get to know.
Yeah. What advice would you give to younger actors who are either going into the business or in the business?
I would echo your thoughts, and I would say produce. Don't wait. I would say develop as many skills as you can, because there are so many talented people. There are so many good actors and so many good singers. So it's not like you're going to break through and be the best there ever was. Like that, the award mentality of, oh, I'll be the best actress. Like there is no such thing. There is no such thing as best actor. Like, so I think it's developing lots of skills, producing your own work, and remembering your why and the joy of it. Because as soon as it's not fun and you don't still love it, I just don't think this business is worth it. Keeps you in a toxic relationship.
What about you, Mark?
I think you just got to go out and meet as many people as you possibly can. And hopefully you get lucky. And the Judd Apatow clan and the Seth Rogen clan and the Will Ferrell clan and the Adam Sandler, they work and hire their friends and the same people. J.J. Abrams, George Clooney, they work with so go out and meet thousands of people and try and get in. James Franco's little brother, he was nobody. And he was an extra on some of his movies. And he talks about he tried to like sneak into scenes so they would have to use him more in coverage. So you just got to do stuff like that. And obviously he had an advantage because his brother's Franco.
Your brother's
Only
the
if your brother's
star.
James Franco. But you just got to go.
Yeah, young actors, don't do that. If your brother's not famous and he's not leading the project, don't do that.
You just got to go and meet as many people as you possibly can, because you just don't know which group is going to be that successful group. And then you're friends and you're a part of this group, and they're the ones making the movies and they're making the TV shows. And then you start with a supporting role and people love that character. And next thing you've got your own thing.
Yeah, that's a good advice as well. And I echo that as well. You have to get out there. And I was a big believer in that. I would do crazy projects all over the place. Some of them took me nowhere and some of them to great places. Alec Baldwin had another great piece of lesson. He said, I would rather be in a play than want to be in a play. I would rather be in a movie, I don't care how small it was, than to want to be in a movie. And his point was, go do stuff. Like if you want to act, go get in a play. And don't worry that it's in Long Island in somebody's garage. Just go do a play. And don't worry about the short if it's a horror film up in Maine or wherever. Just go do something and then let that take you into the next project. And so I think that's good advice.
Yeah, I think there also comes a time though when you need to start analyzing what's worth your time, because
definitely
I'm at the point where I would rather work on and produce my own stuff than do something that's paying me very little money, that's also like working me to the bone for a project that I'm
not doing an NYU independent film anymore.
Yeah.
We're talking about for young actors, but yeah,
I
know what you're worth. You definitely get at an age level where I'm not doing an SVU film project anymore. All right, man, this was great, guys. Tell me, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and share your handles and your projects, and we'll close up.
My Instagram is at Laura E. Darrell, 2 R's, 2 L's, middle initial E, at Laura E. Darrell for Instagram, Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel that I'm working on building.
For us, for anything series, on almost everything, it's at anything animated series. Except for X, it's anything_series. And then you can go to JewsTheMusical.com. We got 4 songs up from our show if you want to have a listen, including Everyone in the FBI is Gay. I think that classic hit.
That's great, man. Jeff was texting me. I haven't responded to him because I'm on the podcast. So I want her to take a selfie while we're on the podcast.
Yeah.
So, it's not too bad. Oh, yeah, that's actually not bad. That was good.
Maybe you should go into cinematography.
Are we seeing you in Nashville?
I'm going to try to go there. Yeah, I'm going to try to go. Jeff, we're talking about maybe getting an Airbnb. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I'm going to get on it and share one for all of us. See if we can find one that makes sense for us. All right, guys, this was great. I'm just going to thanks for everybody for listening. And thanks for listening to the Actors Podcast. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it informative in some way. And if you did, I appreciate a like or good review. And as always, keep believing, keep working, and always keep dreaming.